Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to practice finding the percentages of some different numbers here. And this is going to be a new skill for you guys, but if you've been able to multiply successfully with decimals, like you should have yesterday, then this is really just one extra step. And I'm going to show you how. So let's just start off with this problem here. 60% of 55. So when you're solving with percentages, your first step, okay, I said I would add one extra step. Your first step is to change your percentage to a decimal. Okay, so we have 60%. To change that to a decimal, you're just going to move the decimal place over 2 places. Move it to the left. Okay? Whenever you convert from a percentage to a decimal, you're always moving it 2 to the left. Or in other words, we're dividing 60 by 100. And that's actually the same thing as moving this decimal over. So we're 60%, well, this is a whole number, right? So the decimal is right here to the right of 0. We move it over 1, 2 times. Okay, so this gives us, the decimal's to the left of 6 now. That means that 6 is in the tenths place. So in decimal form, 60% is 0.60 or 0.6. They'd be the same thing. So let's take our extra step here. Remember, I said this was the same thing as 0.6. So now, step 2, we're trying to estimate. Well, let's rewrite the problem actually with the decimal. So now this is really 60% of 55 is really the same thing as 0.6 times 55. So when you put the percentage as a decimal, you can figure out percentages just by multiplying. Well, our estimate here, let's see, 0.6 is pretty close to 1. We'll say it's about 1. So our estimate is going to be about 1 times 55, about 55. Okay, so this is our estimate here. Let me write that. Estimate. Okay, so it's always good to do this because we want to see about what our answer should be. Okay? It helps you check your work much easier. So we said 0.6 times 55 is going to be pretty close to 55. Probably a little less though, because 0.6 is less than 1. So we think it's 55, but a little bit lower. So now step 3, we just need to go ahead and multiply. So we have 0.6 times 55. 0.6 times 55. So now you just go ahead and multiply. 6 times 5 is 30. So we write down a 0. You're going to carry over the 3. Okay. Now we have 0 times 5. That's 0 plus 3. So we get put a 3 right here. Remember, right now we're ignoring the decimal. So now we need to multiply by the tens place. So we're going to do 6 times 5. That gives you 30. So we're going to put a 0 here. We're going to carry over a 3. Okay. So we're done with this one right here. We already used it. So now we did 6 times 5, that gave us 30. We put the 0 here, carry it over the 3. Now we have 0 times 5, that's 0, plus 3. That'll give us a 3 right here. So now you need to go ahead and add up. 0 plus 0 is 0. 3 plus 0 is 3. And then we have just the 3, so we write that here. And then remember, we have one final step here when we're multiplying with decimals. You need to count how many decimal places are there in the numbers you multiplied. Okay, so we multiplied 0.6 times 55. There was only one decimal here. We had a 6 in the tenths place, that's it. So that means that we're going to have one decimal place over here. So that means our decimal is going to go right to the left of the 0, right here. Okay. So we get an answer of 33.0, or in other words, just 33. Okay, 33.0, that's the same thing as 33. Step 4, let's check our work. Check with your estimate. Okay, our estimate was 55, but a little bit lower. 33, yeah, that's pretty close. That's a little bit lower than 55. This works. So you should have gotten 33 for your answer. It seems reasonable with our estimate. And that's all you do. Okay, so the first step we did here, we took our percentage, 60% of 55. Okay, when you're trying to find a percentage of a number, what you can do is convert the percentage to decimal form. That's what we did here. So we move this decimal to the left 2 spots. 1, 2. That gave us 0.6 or 0.60. Same thing. That's 60% as a decimal. So this is decimal form. And step 2, we took our estimate. We said 0.6 times 55. Well, 0.6 is pretty close to 1. 1 times 55 we know is 55. So this is going to be less than 55, but pretty close. And then with step 3, we went ahead and multiplied 0.6 times 55. You just go ahead, you multiply like normal, you ignore the decimal. That's what we did. Make sure when you multiply by the tens place, you add the 0 here. And then finally, our last step, we had to count the decimal places. We said, okay, we multiplied 0.6 times 55. There was only the 6 to the right of the decimal. So that means that we're only going to have one digit to the right of our decimal in our final answer. Okay, so we said, all right, then there's one decimal here, so there's one decimal here. Decimal must be to the left of 0, so this must be 33. And then we checked with our estimate and said that was reasonable. And let's try it out. Okay, so let's do another. What is 20% of 25? So remember, step 1, 20%. I'm going to convert that to a decimal. Okay, so we know that the decimal is right here. So we're going to move it over 1, 2 times right here. That means that in decimal form, 20% would be 0.20. And you know that if you have 0 right here, you can also get rid of it, and it'll be the same number. So this is also the same thing as 0.2. It doesn't matter what you use, but it does make it a little bit easier if you take off that 0 when you're multiplying these. So step 2, our estimate. Well, let's also rewrite the problem too. So instead of 20% of 25, we're going to do 0.2 times 25. Okay? So when you convert a percentage to a decimal, you're allowed to just go ahead and now multiply. So 0.2 times 25, well, we know that's going to be, use a different color. And 0.2, that's pretty close. I know in the IXL it had you round to 0, but I don't like rounding to 0. Let's say this is kind of like 1/2. Half of 25, well, I know half of 24 would be 12, but then we have one extra to split up to get to 25. So our estimate would be half of 25 would be about 12.5. But we know we're not actually finding half of 25, right? We're half would be 50%. We're only finding 20%. So we know that our estimate 12.5 is kind of reasonable, but it's going to be less than that. So step 3, you actually go ahead. Now we need to multiply. 0.2 times 25. Okay, remember first step, ignore the decimals and you just multiply like normal. 5 times 2 is 10. So you write down the 0, carry over the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1. You get a 5. Now, we're multiplying by the tens place now, so you put a 0 here. 5 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is also 0. So, from here, oops, I made a little mistake. I'm sorry. Hopefully you caught that. So, we did 5 times 0, right? So we started off with the 0 in our tens place. And then we had to carry over the 1. 2 times 2 is 4. Get plus 1, 5. Oh, wait, no, I did this right. Okay, I'm sorry. I confused myself. So everything's right. Okay, so now we're doing 5 times 0. And that's 0. 2 times 0 is 0. Okay, so you get all zeros here. That should be no surprise. Alright, so next step, we have to add up. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 0 is 5. Just 0. You can write it in if you want, but I'm not going to. So now we have this for our final answer, but there was one more step. We need to count how many decimal places there should be, because we know 50 wouldn't make sense. 20% of 25, well, that has to be less than 25, because 100% would be 25. So this can't be 50. So what would work, though, is we know we add in the 1 decimal. There's 1 decimal here. 5.0, or in other words, 5. Well, that seems pretty reasonable. All right, we said it would be kind of close to 12.5, but a little less. Seems to work. So our estimate, that was step 4, check with that. That works. Okay, so you should get 5 for your answer. But I'm going to actually do this one more time, and then we'll go from there. Because I just want to show you guys, you shouldn't be surprised about this, because we've worked with percentages some. And percentages are just like fractions. Okay? Or it can also be solved using fractions. All right, 20% of 25. Remember, 20% is really 20 over 100. which, if you simplify this, divide this by 20, divide this by 20, and that'll leave us with 1/5. So 20% as a fraction would be 1/5. If you remember earlier, we also said that 20% would be 0.2 as a decimal. So 0.2, 20%, 1/5, these are all the same number. And if you do the same trick, you take this as a fraction, and you go ahead and multiply, well, you're going to get 1/5 times 25, or if you want 25 over 1, if that's a little easier. 1 times 25 is 25. 5 times 1 is 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. So you can see we got the same answer using fractions as well. And we'll do one more little example here just to, and then we'll call it a day. I don't know, we might have to talk more about this either next week or the week after, but I want to see how you guys do with this assignment today using this video. Okay, so it might be a little challenging, but I think you guys can definitely handle it. I believe in you. So, okay, so I just want to show you how this also works with some key benchmarks too. So we know 100% of a number. So we're trying to find 100% of, we'll say 5. 100% of 5. So all you would have to do is we follow our normal steps, convert this to decimal form, and this would give us instead 1.00 times 5. And that was the same steps we did, just with the other decimal problems. So 100% of 5, well, to find that, you can do 1 times 5, and this shouldn't be surprising for anybody, but 100% of 5 would be all 5. And you would see this would work the same with 0, or 50%, or 20%. In fact, let's try 40% real quick. What if I wanted 40% of 5? So maybe you got a 40% on a quiz that was worth 5 points. You would want to see how many points you got right out of 5. So this type of problem could solve that. So again, you follow the same steps. Move the decimal over twice. This now gives us 0.4. 0.40, it's the same thing, of 5. So actually, we don't need to write of. If we're finding 40% of a number, or any percentage of a number, you just multiply that number in decimal form by the other. So we do 0.40 times 5, 0.4 times 5, and what you should get, let's try it out. It's an arrow. So 0.40, that's the same as 0.4 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. Right, carry over the 2. 0 times 5 is 0, plus 2. Oops. So you put a 2 there. And then finally, just as the others, count how many decimals you should have. So there's 1 to the right. We need 1 to the right. So we'll put our decimal right here. So what do you know? 2 out of 5 would be 40% of 5. And that's something we've talked about in class. We did a lot of that with fractions. So that's telling us that 2/5, should I write that down here? So 2/5 is equal to 0.4, or 0.40, which is equal to 40%. Okay? So I know it's maybe been a little bit more challenging this week, but you guys are doing great, and I think if you're doing a little bit of work every day that I'm assigning you, I think you're all going to see that each step makes more and more sense, and that you can do a little bit more each day. So hopefully you all learned something today, and see that working with percentages is not anything crazy. It's just we add one more step to multiplying with decimals. Right? The first step in this case, since we're working with percentages, is just converting that percentage to a decimal, and then you go ahead and multiply. That's it. So let's see how it goes. If you're having a hard time, let me know. We'll go from there. I just want to see that you guys try it out, and we'll see what's up. So that's all I have. Take care. Enjoy your day.